the country for this. But let's hope that God will prevent this, because America is a gift from God to the world. Unless you have been in a concentration camp and see what the Americans have sacrificed, many young pilots in their 20s have died to free me, and I will never forget this. Never in my life forget this. This is a scene that will remain with me. How good America is.
Other things, you've told me that you've worked with people that were Nazi-related in Germany.
Yes.
How can a good man do those kind of things?
Here's an example. I used to wonder, look, before I had plans to leave Europe because I saw Europe changing for the worst. And because I've been through the war and the terrible things of the war, I was more alert than a lot of people who didn't go through it. It is so indelible that you never forget the war. People can say, why don't you forget it? But the war comes back in epiphanies your whole life. You will never forget it. Anyway, while I learned a trade, I was improving my trade in Germany. America here was so good. Can you imagine what would happen if Hitler, Tojo, and Mussolini had won the war? The whole world would have been enslaved and lived in hell. But what did America do? It restored the broken people. With a Marshall Plan, it gave a chance for Germany to build up. And Germany did that. They called it the Wirtschaftswunder. And they needed a lot of people because a lot of Germans died on the Eastern Front and had a lack of manpower, working power. So I came with the foreign workers in Germany where I worked. I rented a home in a village of Mikkelveld outside of Hamburg. Hamburg was still a vast field of rubble. You remember that after Hitler bombed Britain, Winston Churchill took revenge, and with American money, he built the Lancaster bombers, and the Allies flattened Hamburg. It was an enormous destruction, and this was being built up. So Mikkelveld was a little village outside of Hamburg, and I rented a room from a young man. He was an interesting young man. His name was Richard Wagner. He was a poster boy for Nazi Germany. He was tall, with blonde, wavy hair, blue eyes, handsome Nordic features, but he was deeply melancholy, and he drank a lot and took drugs. And one day he asked me, he said, Roy, where were you during the war? You're young enough to, he very, very carefully asked him. And I told him where I had spent the war years. And we became very close friends, and we talked about war. We were both interested in the devastated results of war. And he poured out his heart to me, because you could see he considered me like a psychologist, and I listened to him and just asked him questions. I said, no, Richard, look at you. We have become close friends. If I had been here in Germany, you would have thrown me in the ovens like so many millions of citizens were thrown in the ovens and burned to death. But here we have become good friends. What made an intelligent man like you follow an evil man like Hitler? I promise me, don't give me any theory, give me your gut feelings, why you did that. And he proceeded to tell, he said, Roy, Germany was in shambles. We were devastated. But in this vacuum came a man who promised us a Volkswagen in a chicken in every pot and a Volkswagen in every garage. And every step that he made politically, he was not met by the Allies. Everybody outside tried to compromise with Germany. And he wanted the western side of Russia, and He needed all the men that he could, and I joined him. I had full belief in him. I thought he was a messiah. And in Operation Barbarossa, I went with the massive armies into Germany, and our task was to kill as many Russians as we could, take West Germany for the oil, and that Germany had, and Germany needed what Hitler called Lebensraum, elbow room. I said, when did you realize that you had been had? He said, when I was in Russia. The Russians were very smart. They had an enormous landmass, and they retreated. They were waiting for their greatest ally, the cruel Russian winter. And when the winter descended upon Russia, climate changed so fast, skies were overcast, the fields started turning in mud puddles, the tanks could not even move, and when the freezing came, it was so terrible, he said, that our tanks, the tracks of our tanks froze, even the booze in the bottles froze. We had no more fuel. We stood stand still where we had no fuel. Germans died. Some even died when their brains froze under their helmets. That's how cold it was. And he said, in the meantime, the Cossacks on their horses were attacking us and cutting us down. And Hitler gave us said that the Germans are not going to surrender to the Untermensch, the low-life Russians. We are the Übermensch, the Superman of the world. And so we had to fight to the death. And if many of you well know that just in the Battle of Stalingrad, 3 million soldiers died for nothing. They could not surrender. And I was captured by the Russians, but through a miracle, in exchange of prisoners, I could go back to Germany. And when I came back, I saw the terrible devastation and found out that Hitler had committed suicide. And so it's too late, he said. We lost everything.
So, in your opinion, I know the Swedes were never overtaken by the Germans. A lot of people say Sweden was, kind of a neutral company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
here it is. We have strong voices here to destroy the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, which is a dangerous attempt to destroy America. The Swiss were never invaded by Hitler because every man there had a weapon. They said that Switzerland had an army, but no, Switzerland was an army. And Hitler never took Switzerland. And so is it that the communist Chinese and all our enemies would like to see the weapons taken away so that they could take America if possible. But if every American had a weapon here, it would have been a long, long battle, because Americans, knowing freedom, would not easily surrender. Especially, we have now soldiers who come back from these foreign wars with their legs blown off, and they know who their enemy is, and they would create an army within the United States. So let's hope that the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, will never be destroyed in the United States.
So after 200 plus years of Americans having the right of the Second Amendment, it's your belief that they're trying to take that right away just in case they try to do something bad to us.
Yes.
And we cannot defend ourselves.
Yes.
Or maybe there's a second hand in there that's making them move their hand to try to take our weapons away.
That's right.
All right, Roy. Well, it was good talking with you today. Maybe we can continue this another day.
Yeah. I hope, as I tell my grandchildren, do not take things for granted in life. What we have, we are so blessed in this country. Unless you've lived in other countries like me, in Southeast Asia and in Europe, you will never forget this country is the best country in the world, without exaggeration. And please let us keep it this way.
Roy, thank you again. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
You're welcome.
I look forward to talking with you some more. Again, for all you people that always ask me, how can I think the way I think? How can I say the things I say when you've known me my whole entire life? Well, you don't really understand the things, the people I talk to, the stories I hear, the real life situations real people have been through. And it's truly sad that, some of us are so self-centered and we're all indulged in our own lives that we can't see real pain and real suffering that real people all around the world, not just in America, have been through. And it's just unbelievable. All right. Well, we look forward to talking to Roy and more. Again, I'm not a professional. This is just off the hip, talking to some real people that have been through some real things. Thank you guys.